Right now on Rooted, we're digging into the fallout from the 2024 Boston University graduate student worker strikes. We sat down with a person whose status as a BU grad student is in jeopardy due to what she says is retaliation. She shares what this fight means for her future and for the broader battle over labor rights in higher ed. Let's hear her story. So the 2024 Boston University strikes really helped define graduate student work and the movements around making that work fair. Jasmyn, you participated in these strikes. Take me back to that time and what the energy was around it.
Yes. So we were organizing as a student body together. For the most part, all of the graduate students were like united. We were looking out for each other. We were communicating with each other. It was really important that we organized like different mutual aid efforts so that anybody who was like financially vulnerable could have access to those funds. So it was really important that we worked together, but there was a really uncomfortable intensity because we weren't sure how Boston University was going to retaliate or how quickly they would retaliate. So the first day of the strike, it didn't take very long for Boston University to get access to who was striking and then withhold our pay pretty much immediately. So it went from feeling organized and united and strong to vulnerable, chaotic, and pretty afraid. I was scared from the start to the end. So from March to October, I was scared the whole time.
And that's a long time to be trying to focus
Yes.
on your work and on your studies while also living in fear.
Yes.
What were you afraid of?
I was afraid of losing my apartment, losing my cat, which both of these things happened. I was afraid of how my mental health would be affected. I was afraid for my friends and my colleagues, which I came in with a very close-knit cohort. And of course, we all drift apart because of research and dedication to the craft. But I was afraid that, being one of the only Black students in the department, that if I didn't strike, I would face retaliation within the department. And then also I was afraid that if I did strike, the university would come down harder on me than the white, colleagues. And it ended up being pretty true. So I didn't see a way to address these fears in real time. So I just had to push through it instead. And I don't know if that was the best mode of action.
Now, the strike was successful.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah.
Okay, and we will talk more about that.
Yeah.
But at least there was a 3-year contract that was put into place and included different tenets of the agreement, such as fair pay, a $45,000 stipend for research, for graduate student worker researchers, emergency funds in case of an emergency, in case students needed to take leaves, etc. Now, you ended up in a situation where your mental health was compromised, and you approached the university about this.
Yes.
And what happened from there?
So that was back in March. I was homeless from that October until March. Basically, I heard from my department chair, my mentor, and they were concerned about whether or not I would be able to continue my PhD work. So at that point, the associate director of the graduate affairs reached out to me to see how well I was, basically, and I wasn't. So I was just honest, hey, I'm juggling unemployment, I'm juggling the homelessness, and you guys are asking me to write a PhD on top of all of it. So I found it really dehumanizing, and I needed to slow down and only focus on me. So at that point, the GRS wanted me, or they suggested for me to go on leave, take a leave, find housing, find employment, and then return from my leave after I secured all of these things. So that's originally why I agreed to going on leave.
And were they offering you any sort of support during that time?
Not really. No.
And this was even after, like, the emergency fund wasn't available to you for this?
It was available to me. No one told me at the time that it was available. So I was just like navigating the situation more or less by myself.
And were you explained, whether it be by the university or even by the union, how your leave of absence would affect your ability to return and continue and finish out your studies and your work?
Yeah. So I was led to believe that when I was ready to return and come off my leave of absence in this spring, spring of 2026, that it would be seamless, that I would just have to submit the same form to the same person, and I could just come back. And what ended up happening was not organized, and it was very clear that my well-being wasn't at the forefront of the GRS's mind, basically. So I originally asked to be taken off my leave last summer when I wanted to participate in a TA position with a professor who I won't name right now, but it was a great opportunity. I would have worked over the summer, and it would have given me like $3,000 to save up and come back to Boston and have a stronger foundation than I definitely do now. And then I asked again in December because essentially GRS forced me to come back to Boston so I could finish my PhD work because they claimed I couldn't do it from Texas.
But they're saying that you have to come back and finish your PhD work, even though the process for you being reintegrated into the university system has not been seamless.
Yes, exactly.
So what resources are at your disposal at this point to mend that?
A couple of them. So I did reach out to the dean of students because I felt like me advocating for myself wasn't going very well. And I thought that as the dean of students, that organization within BU would be positioned in a way where they could advocate for me against GRS and say hey, she's trying, she's in the state, let's do what's necessary to get her reinstated so the dean of students office can step in with emergency housing and financial aid. That's kind of where the messiness gets in. I was forced to come back to BU and Boston University writ large, and now the university is blocking me from continuing by leaving me in my leave of absence indefinitely.
Indefinitely. So there's you have that. It sounds like that could be a hard timeline to plan for. Yeah. If I remember correctly, in the email, they said I have by January 20th to come up with a way to pay for tuition, find housing, and employment by that day. And it was at that moment when I realized they're deliberately stacking the wall against me, and that's impossible for anybody to do, to come up with all of these things by that date. And why do you think they're doing this?
I think because I participated in the union, I went on strike, I very vocally asked someone pretty high up in the university to not scab my class. But at the same time, that year, I had only made $16,000 for the entire year. And that was one of the big motivators for me to go on strike in the first place.
Yeah,
so
that's way below a livable wage in Boston. And what exactly, you mentioned how united everyone who was striking seemed to be in the beginning, but you also mentioned these worries you had about if you didn't strike, would you be alienated? Yeah. And so how has the union supported you throughout this process, and what have they communicated to you as your options?
So it's been kind of touch and go. Over the summer, I reached out to 2 union staff members because basically what happened was I got that TA ship, and then a week before I was supposed to start, GRS basically forced me out because they tried to argue that because I was on a leave of absence that I couldn't take the TA-ship, but the summer term office processed my contract without checking to see if I was on a leave of absence. So I was terminated from that job, and I tried to push back, and that's when I got in touch with the union to see what they could do. And at most, they could like make my case a example of Boston University like not honoring our contracts, and then kind of like representing that we needed another statute basically that includes that if PhD students are undergoing like extreme duress, like I am in my case, that we should be able to do our TA-ships remotely. So I think that's part of the union's goal now, but in terms of like immediate support, I haven't really received a lot of that outside of like some email advice.
And has that advice been helpful and actionable?
Not really. Part of the limitations of the union right now is they can't really intervene in situations that are beyond employment. So that's the tricky part about where I am right now is I am not currently employed with Boston University, so the union has like only so many things that they can do for me.
I see. And you mentioned that the union is using your case as an example for things that they would ideally have amend for the next contract with BU.
Yes.
Are there other examples like yours that you've heard of or are aware of?
Yes. I'm not sure how much to share, but I definitely know people who have been like really terribly treated by GRS and by BU, and it's a combination of like mental health struggles and financial vulnerabilities. So yeah, I know of at least like one or two cases where people just need like extreme support and they're not getting it because GRS is coming down on us really hard for striking.
Help us understand why graduate student workers are so vulnerable, both in terms of financial vulnerability, but also mental health.
Yes. It's a mix of things. So in general, like when we take like general like population of graduate students, we're vulnerable because we do a lot of work for the university and we don't receive a lot of recognition for it. We're also vulnerable because the university justifies paying us as an excuse to take advantage, like to exploit us in a lot of ways. So you're vulnerable because you're getting paid on one hand, but you're not getting paid enough. You're also vulnerable because you don't have the same insurance plans as, you know, a faculty member or administration, right? So those things can be challenging. And if you have children, sometimes there's not a way to like cover the cost of like childcare on top of it.
Now, you are a minority on campus. BU's Black student population is only about 4 to 7%. So how does that compound the situation, and how has that impacted your experience at BU?
Every day. So when I was getting my master's and we did the large intake, like the open house basically. It was only me and maybe 3 other Black people in like a room full of, you know, potentially other people of color, but mostly white students.
And lastly here, Jasmyn, what is one thing that's been keeping you rooted or grounded throughout this whole experience?
Writing, like I don't want to talk about threads, but like it's a space that has changed how I've been thinking about social media, and because I hate social media, I'm introverted.
I can relate.
Instagram is getting weird, you know. Facebook has always been weird. Like, I like just being able to share stuff and be silly and be open with people without masking, without worrying about like, did I say the wrong thing? But yeah, that's really been keeping me grounded. I've been working on like an essay in response to a show that's getting a lot of hype in the queer community right now, and
Does it start with an H and an R?
Yeah, it does.
He did drive over you for anyone not watching.
Yeah. And I've been processing like what effect it's having on the fandom and then what effect it's having for like queer audiences too. So
fascinating. Well, you have a brilliant mind, Jasmyn.
Thank you.
And so we look forward to keeping up with you and your work, be it at BU or anywhere else in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe below and click the playlist button for more Rooted videos. And a big thank you to our sponsor, Brightbound, for supporting this conversation. Brightbound is reimagining career readiness, helping middle and high school students explore their passions, try out career paths, and make confident decisions about their future.